We'll go over the finer points on the ground ladder Highpoint RIT drill. So basically rescuing a down firefighter from like a window or something. Utility line is usually plentiful on the fire ground, and I see this packed all sorts of different ways, and I'm a little OCD on how I like to pre-rig it. So let's go over what I don't want to see in a fire ground utility bag versus what I do like to see. Usually these bags have a grommet on the bottom, and you'll usually see them tied with a stopper knot here. And the reason that this grommet is here is so that you can utilize both ends simultaneously for different purposes if you want to. And unfortunately, a lot of people like to tie stopper knots on the very inside, and now I can't pull this through. You see there's a stopper knot, and now this is useless. So don't ever do that, because you render the other end of your line completely dysfunctional. Also, I'll see people tie these things in a figure 8 on a bite. They may have a carabiner, they may not. Ideally, it would be nice to pair at least one carabiner with your line, but I don't like any kind of terminal end loop knot, because if I need to purpose this out for something other than like a connection point, like if I need to hitch this around something, I have to actually untie this knot. And granted, like, okay, like that was pretty easy because it's unloaded and unweighted, but over time they get cinched up and it's difficult. So instead, what I like to see in a bag is a carabiner in it, and on the terminal end I have a scaffold or a poacher's knot. And now, even though it's a knot, yeah, but if I need to like repurpose this out and do something different, I can just pop the knot loose with my hand, and it makes it a lot faster. So it's just one of those preferences. On the bottom end, instead of just tying a barrel knot here, this can potentially flake out, you know, if it wasn't tied on the inside. And so what I want to do with this is do another barrel knot, but leave it a little bit loose, and then tie it in or hook it in to the handle, because that'll keep this from wanting to pay out inadvertently over time as it gets caught on snags. That's a potential, because this could just kind of pull out, and now you're carrying this thing around and this tail can get really long. So if we can do that every time as opposed to just tying a stopper knot and letting it loose, that's a little bit cleaner, it's a little bit better to manage and deal with. The classic ladder Highpoint is conceptually it's a 2-to-1, but there's no mechanical advantage here because we aren't using pulleys, not even using carabiners up top, and there's a lot of friction. So really it helps us with the holding power once we lift a firefighter up out of a windowsill or something like that. We just need to make sure that our utility line is going to be long enough, because when you do a 2-to-1, you're basically doubling the amount of rope you need based on the height that you have to go. There are a bunch of different ways that people like to kind of run through this. And unfortunately, if you don't practice it a lot, or if you have other things like going on all the time, other training aspects, you do a lot of rope work elsewhere, you kind of scratch your head and wonder, wait, what's the right way to route this through the rungs? Because I'll see if we go over here, some people will say, okay, you leave the bag here, then you route this rope underneath or over and through, and you weave it. And I just find that can get kind of confusing. And the fail-safe way to do this, granted, it's an emergency within an emergency. The easy way to do this is just grab the rope, make sure you have a carabiner. All right, so let's go up the ladder. I'm gonna take the whole bag with me. And I want to go as high as I can, because the higher the better. If rope length is not an issue, I'd rather go high, because if I ballpark it too short, I'm kind of screwed. So higher the better. Well above where you need to gain access. So the highest rung, I'm gonna call the highest rung here, I need to establish an anchor point to start my 2-to-1 drop loop. First things first is just secure the rope to the rung. I'll see people using these really large carabiners, and that works, but if you don't have a carabiner, or if you need a carabiner elsewhere, chances are you're probably gonna need a carabiner elsewhere. Just use basic firefighter knots and hitches. If you don't know what knot, tie a lot. This is an emergency within an emergency, so trying to be like, oh wait, a clove hitch, and then I need to do an overhand backup. Okay, if you want to, whatever's fastest for you, just make sure it's secure. So here, I can do my clove hitch, you can see that, and leave it at that, but I just wanna make sure that I leave myself enough tail so that when it's loaded up, it doesn't want to slide through. If I had the time, yeah, I can do an overhand as a backup, and that's fine. Do you have to do a clove hitch? No, you do whatever is fastest and most comfortable for you. So what are my other options to anchor? Okay, I can do a follow through figure 8. I can do a constrictor hitch, which might be a little bit overkill. So here's my constrictor hitch. I go back underneath and through. A little more secure version of a clove hitch. It works. Some people do tensionless hitches, but I find that is way overkill. Plus they need an extra carabiner on a tensionless hitch. And I don't like them. Now I need to send the drop loop, or what's going to be that 2-to-1 down. The most intuitive way is probably just to say, okay, here's my bite right here. I'm going to give the team inside, if they don't have their own carabiner to hook up to my down firefighter, that's going to be the carabiner that we're going to use. And we can send the bite down. And when we send it down this way, we create a change of direction on the next rung down right here. So we lose height, which is why we want to get as high as possible. But you could argue that we're distributing the forces between the 2 rungs. Is that critical? I don't think so. If you look at the standards for ladders, these rungs are tested to forces that are pretty high. An alternate way, and a way that could be a little bit better to maximize our height profile, is still anchor to the top rung. But instead, we can feed this bite down and use the same rung as our directional. So let's see. You can see what that looks like. So this is our 2-to-1 bite going down, but we also use our change of direction at the same high point as opposed to one lower. Either or doesn't matter. I like this a little bit better because it guarantees that maximum height that we want to achieve. Okay, so once I have this established, I lower it all the way down to the crew inside, and they're going to rig up our down firefighter. And then this, I can just hand it off to somebody else down below. I just don't want to make, I want to make sure that this bag doesn't fall into the IDL space as well. So I'm going to throw that out there. Meanwhile, while all that rigging is going up on the ground ladder, the crew inside is packaging our down firefighter. If you look at how we want to harness them, we want to grab the built-in harness that he has. And right now, Gabe has a carabiner already in here. Not every firefighter has a carabiner. So hold that in your hand. Let's pretend that you don't have one. So we pull this out. We're going to hook in with our 2-to-1 bite right in here. That's good for a seat harness, but he's down. He's kind of like unconscious. So we want to do something additional that will kind of cradle him. And the top coat has the DRD, and we can use that. Again, it's not like a rated lifting point. The seat harness is. We don't want to lift from that actual air pack because that's not rated either. Like we've actually have historically like broken the composite on the back. We're gonna grab your DRD right here. So you can see that. And we're gonna pull this out as much as we can. Okay, now I need to take this and then integrate it into the seat harness, and that's basically creates kind of like a quasi improvised full body style harness. But I want to be careful when I do this because I don't want to drape this over and potentially close down on any of the airlines. So here the air pack, the airline is going over the left shoulder. I want to make sure that I don't impede that, and I'm going to go over the right shoulder instead. Okay, and we're going to hook them up here. Some of the DRDs are longer for other people. If we can cradle him so that he's not scorpioning over, that's a big plus. If this is too long, we can always just tie an overhand knot and then clip the shelf in to shorten that up. But this is your improvised cradling full body style harness. And now the rigging for our down firefighter is complete. And now it's a matter of the crews inside actually doing the lifting or the hoisting. The rope system isn't doing the hoisting because there's a lot of friction to overcome. The carabiner, usually they're probably going to be steel. This is aluminum. They have high friction coefficients. And the rung has those grooves in there that's really gripping on. So trying to haul, it's not a 2-to-1. It's worse than a 1-to-1. Where we gain in this system is our ability to hold the progress that we make from the outside while the crews are inside lifting our firefighter up. Just like with rope rescue, high directionals, we need to be cognizant of what our resultant's doing. We don't want to be shifting the load outside of this footprint. And the footprint is really just the straight line here where underneath the ladder. So if we're grabbing and vectoring our patient or down firefighter outside the footprint, or hauling from outside the footprint and capturing, we can potentially tip this ladder over if it's not being footed appropriately or lashed and guide down. So that's a huge consideration, because if that happens, we drop our firefighter back into the IDLH and we just make things worse. So let's do some quick guesstimations on our resultant forces. So right here, if I'm capturing the progress, like, chances are I'm not going to be standing right here, especially if this is a basement fire and this is like a window well. This is an open pit, and so maybe I need to be somewhere else capturing the load. So right now our resultant forces are going straight down and everything's pretty in line, so we're good to go. Now let's talk about some things that I see that are kind of like a red flag. So if I take this line and I route this under whatever, any one of these rungs, to try and hold my progress out here, that puts a net resultant force right here that wants to kick this ladder out and topple this thing. So I don't want to do this if I can avoid it. Does it mean that you can't do this? No, you can. You just have to make sure that you tie your ladder down so that it's not going to lift up and out. It's easier just to not do this than it is to tie your ladder down in a fireground emergency. So don't do this. Instead, we can simply just route the rope the other way. And when I route it this direction, we have a net resultant force going along the edge, and then I can wrap it down. But there are some downsides to this too, and it's a little bit harder for me to capture progress. So when it's time to like hop up and capture, so Gabe, give me a quick hop up. So right there's just more stuff that I have to pull through in order to capture. But when I do capture, there's less tension I have to hold because of the cumulative bends around the rungs. That's just more friction. So the more wraps you have around rungs, the easier it is for the guys on the outside to hold and capture that progress. And there are different ways you can route that, but just understanding where those resultant forces are going on your ladder to prevent the ladder from kicking out or toppling over. Where we actually save is in the prevention part of rapid intervention. So we get to a fire early, we can size up the structure, do multiple 360 walkarounds, map it out, soften the structure, identify the hazards and relate them to the type of fire it is, where the fire is, the occupancy type, the building construction. What RIT teams can do in advance is identify, okay, like where are the egress spots, where are the potential spots where we may need to throw ground ladders in advance. Because a lot of times you get on scene and you set up your RIT cache, you do things, and then you find yourself going, okay, well now what? Okay, well, like we can start like beefing up our system so we can tie ground ladders and stabilize them in advance. One place where this hasty 2-to-1 RIT Highpoint doesn't work very well is in a basement. I don't say basement fire, but a basement scenario where the downed firefighter needs to get out through the window well. It can't get out through the stairway in the structure. Because in the window wells, often they're probably about chin height, and the crews inside can lift the firefighter up initially onto that first bench so that we're in the well. But the crews outside don't have access to lift. They can't lift on this system because it's not mechanical advantage, and the crews inside don't have the leverage. They can't even get up into the well to assist either, so they're kind of stuck. And you can train on this, figure it out for yourself. We've done this where we've come to that problem where, man, I wish we would have built a purpose-built like haul system, like a pre-rigged 4-to-1 block and tackle. So for those kind of basement window well considerations, if you have time on the front end when you show up and you're doing your preventative RIT work, try to find pulleys and carabiners and a rope off of like a truck or something. If there's a heavy rescue there, I'm sure that's not a problem. We want to avoid using the Aztec, because the Aztec you only get 10 feet, and oftentimes we need more than 10 feet. So as tempting as it is to grab the Aztec, don't. Just grab maybe 4 pulleys, 4 carabiners, and a prusik, and then a life safety rope, because the utility line might not be long enough for a pre-rigged 4-to-1 block and tackle. Okay, so let's rig this up and assume that the emergency hasn't happened yet. but we're anticipating the potential. So we want to be proactive and set pre-rig things up, just like a standby confined space kind of rescue, right? So we're going to pre-rig some things just in case we need it, because it can't hurt. A life safety rope that might come off of a truck or whatever, 1/2 inch, 7/16, whatever. It's going to be longer than our utility line, so this one's probably around 200 feet or so. I don't want to grab the whole bag this time. It's kind of cumbersome, but I'll just take the terminal end. And I'm going to grab 4 carabiners, 4 pulleys. If I have double sheave pulleys, I'll just grab 2. So really I need 4 sheaves, 4 carabiners, and just, it could be a sling, webbing, prusik, whatever. This is just to set an anchor. So let's rig this up. All right, step 1, terminal end. I don't want to tie it in front because we're hauling this way, right? So just same thing as before. I can just tie a terminal end line anchor. Doesn't matter what I use exactly, just make sure that it's secure and it's not going to go anywhere. In this case, my favorite go-tos are the constrictor hitches. It's like a clove hitch on steroids. It has a little bit more security than a clove hitch, and I don't need to do any safety knot. It's just a palm's width at least of tail. So that's my first drop. Now I start hooking in pulleys. Okay, so first pulley, this is going to be my 2-to-1. It doesn't matter which way I do this because there are no progress captures. So this is a 2-to-1, and I'm basically the victim, or our down firefighter, is going to hook in the harness right here. So that's your 2-to-1. Now I need to do my change of direction, and that's where my prusik comes into play. So on the same point, and I can shorten this up as much as I can. The quickest way to do this is just to wrap it in a basket so that it's short, just like that. So there's my anchor. I'm going to change of direction there with another carabiner. And again, this isn't an emergency with an emergency yet. This is preventative actions of a RIT team. So I have another pulley. That's my change of direction on a 2-to-1. So as I come up, I've now created a 2-to-1 with a change of direction. I'm going to start making my 4-to-1 with no change of direction. And I'm going to use, on this carabiner, can you see right here? I'm going to clip right there. And then I'm going to put my rope right in here. So now I have my 4-to-1 right there. So that's a 4-to-1 with no change of direction. I bring that last bite up, and there, this is my 4th pulley. So 4 carabiners, 4 pulleys. And I do the same thing here. It doesn't matter where I go. I'm going to carabiner, open this up, and I get my change of direction. So now I have a high efficient, pre-rigged block and tackle, 4-to-1 with a final change of direction, just like that. Okay, you're good. In back. Okay, and now we have our high efficient 4-to-1 change of direction haul system that we can actually haul. The crews inside can still assist, and this is just going to make it a whole lot easier, especially on that window well transition in a basement, because I'm just a single person and I can lift Gabe fully turned out by myself. And so you can imagine just how easy this would be with crews inside assisting by pulling up, and then I have a couple more hands that can help on the haul.